Welcome to the Chief Endurance Officer Podcast. I'm your host, Greg McDonough. Each week, we hear real-time stories from athletes and CEOs on how to maximize performance through an endurance mindset. Let's get started. Well, welcome to the Chief Endurance Officer Podcast. I'm your host, Greg McDonough. I am thrilled for our guest today. He is a former D1 track and field athlete, which led his journey into endurance sports. He has competed in over 60 races, immersed himself in multi-sport cycling communities. Driven by his passion for athletics and commitment to excellence, he's founded a brand dedicated to revolutionizing active performance and recreation apparel. The founder and CEO of Varlo, please welcome Soj Jibowu. Did I get that right?
Man. That's close. Soj Jibowu. That was close.
Soj Jibowu. It's funny. When I'm doing my intros, and I shouldn't be putting this on record, but that's okay. I always think about how I'm going to mispronounce the name, and it just gets me fired up. But anyway, it adds some flavor to the show.
All good.
So, as you know, I love talking about the endurance mindset. And so I'd love to know how your endurance mindset has impacted your life unexpectedly.
Yeah, man. Absolutely. Well, first of all, thanks for having me. This is great to be on the podcast. I've heard so much. And for me, I grew up in sports. I grew up running, playing soccer. And I'm so thankful of it at a young age. I'm thankful my parents put me into sports. I'm thankful for the coaches I had. I think that when you're young and you're in it, you're doing sport because, I don't know, you want to, maybe your parents put you in it to burn energy and you want to see how fast you are, how quick you are, who's the best on the team. But if I look back at my journey, I'm 42 years old now, and I look at where I've been, whether it is, collegiate sports as a D1 athlete, recreationally, post-college, the things that I've learned in sport when it comes to discipline, character, perseverance, decisive hunger, I would say, right? Respecting the process, learning, being coachable. Those things I've all learned through sports, and most importantly, how to endure, how to understand yourself, understand your emotions, how to lose and continue to go. And what it does feel like to achieve something after putting in a lot of effort. So sports endurance has been the backbone of my existence.
I appreciate that. And in particular, the how to lose, right? I mean, we don't talk about that those really tough days, or for me, for those cycling training days where you just bonked at mile 60 and now you got to figure out how to get back to your car and your legs are gone, right? It's those tough days. And so I'd love you to go a little bit deeper and talk about sort of dealing with a loss, right? Professional loss, competitive loss, and what sort of mindset you have to bounce back and to get back at it the next day.
Yeah. Well, I'd say that, I think what I've learned is that you should be mentally prepared to understand that you're going to lose way more than you win. And that's okay. That's okay, because that's what it takes, right? If, you're going to lose way more than you win. And that is okay, because you got to try, you got to put in effort. There's nothing wrong with putting in effort. Don't be scared to put in effort. But I think I would dare to say, my understanding on how to lose, how to have the emotional mindset of losing and continue to persevere has come from loss. It's come from taking bad hits on the chin. It's come from being emotionally taken down from, having your hopes high and then, taking that loss. It's come from that. But I also think that it's come from understanding that it's part of the process. It's a process. It's not about, I remember in track and field when I was in college, I remember going from being like the record holder, the multi, conference champion and all these things. And I remember when it was time to not be that anymore, because, there was evolution in sport. People are coming, there's faster people coming up, there's injuries, all these things, and what that felt like. And I remember assessing and looking back and going, what was my purpose? Was my purpose to come here and be the best track and field athlete ever at Central Michigan University? Or was my purpose to come here, get my degree, learn, gain discipline so I can go into the next chapter of my life? And so I think it's having a really, really broad view of like what it is that you're doing, who you are, and understanding that this is only part of the process of how you get better, how you develop, and how you continue to grow. That's key number one in understanding loss. And I also think the biggest part in navigating loss or navigating difficult times is understanding to control what you can control, and not trying to take blame for things that are completely out of control, but control what you can, and I don't know, respect the process.
So I'd love to know, in the moment, right? And when that realization came to you that, hey, this other guy, he's got me, right? I picked up an injury, I've aged a little bit, you know how it all goes.
Yeah.
And you've come up with, this broader view, understanding your purpose, control what you control. I suspect that didn't come to you in that moment. Like this was years later or at some point of a reflection. And I really appreciate you actually talking to that a little bit more. Like when did it set in that you said, finally, I understand what my purpose was at that moment, X amount of years or time later?
Yeah. Oh goodness. Yeah. So first of all, in the moment, it never, you don't have these profound virtuous thoughts in the moment. You're like, this stinks. Professionally, I remember working as like after college, I was a pharmaceutical rep. And this is actually a really good example. I was a pharmaceutical rep right after college, and I was working on this monstrous deal, this like multi IDN network deal, healthcare system deal. Actually, I was in the medical device space at this time, and I was working on this deal for like a year, and I I I left the hospital system. We just got done with a luncheon with the physicians. The CFO came in, had luncheon with them, and I was high fiving like my colleagues, my vice president, and we're driving away, and I got a phone call that like my competitors were just flying in. We just left. We thought we won this thing. My competitors just flying in. I got a phone call the next morning that, hey, they went with a competitor. We lost the deal. I was working on this for 12 months, and oh my goodness, that really, really hurt. That really hurt, and it stunk. And I was definitely in a lull for a bit there. Here's what I would say for me when my purpose really, really hit. When I said to myself, okay, this is all part of the process. This is part of the journey. And the thing about a journey is that the journey is not at that moment. It's not about what happened at that moment. And it's not necessarily about like what is going to happen next year or in the next 6 months or next 3 months and how you're going to be better. Individually, we're so stuck on thinking about ourselves and thinking about just us. But I remember a time where I was talking to my uncle. I was born in Nigeria. I moved to the States at a very young age, and I was getting a little briefing or some schooling on how we came to the States, and I was getting some schooling about my grandmother and my grandfather and my great grandmother and my great great grandfather, and I was getting some understanding about like what it took for us to get to the States. And I remember learning and just even watching, because at a young age you're watching your mother and your father as they're working. And I remember getting this understanding of like what my purpose was. And it's so much bigger than just me, right? It's about the people that came before me. It's the people that made it even possible for me to even be sitting here, right? Or even to have the privilege of running a race where I may have been the fastest, or I had a job where I had the privilege of competing for an IDN system. Um, really understanding that to really kind of go, man, this is bigger than this. It's bigger than a race. It's bigger than what this loss might feel like. It's not the loss. It's, dude, it's a privilege to be
Mhm.
here. And not only that, it's not over here because there's more opportunity to come. Eventually, as I've had, I have two children. I have my daughter's 6, my son's about to be 4 in 2 months. And then you start thinking about the broader sense of like what life is to them and the parallels from where your parents, how they raised you, what they've done for you, and then how you're going to continue that to your children. It goes way beyond like what a loss is. I mean, when you're thinking about it in that broader sense and you're thinking of like broader purpose as who we are, who I am, and you have a clear understanding of that, you realize that, man, like, come on, like, are you really upset about, losing that? Or did you learn something and you take wisdom? Did you understand tactical, strategic things about yourself that you will take into the next thing? Will you be able to coach and teach other individuals um, based off of what you've learned? And that's, to me, I mean, that's a really long-winded answer there, but that's my overall approach to purpose, overall approach to how to manage taking loss, etc.
It's super insightful. And you're right. It's something I've got two children as well, 16 and 12, two girls, and perspective changes
Yeah,
dramatically, not just
yeah,
with children, but with sort of a lot of milestones in life. Like my story, I tried to walk onto a D1 soccer team here in the East Coast. The coach used to coach Pele, thought I had a great junior year tryout and I should have made the team. I didn't make the team. And fast forward a few years later, I'm in graduate school and I'm hanging out with one of the old players. And he's like, I don't like playing soccer anymore because I would train for 4 hours a day. I would sit on the bench and watch the team play. And then it's back to training and studying and training. And so to your point, I eventually realized that, hey, you know what? I still love this game. And I
mm,
was able to play it through my 40s. And then I got into triathlon. And so then I shifted my focus. But um, back to sort of perspective and parenting and enduring,
yeah,
as we push through it, it becomes so much clear. Like in the moment, it can be very fuzzy and hazy, but you just know, you kind of know in your gut that you're doing something in the right direction.
yeah,
And then a few years later, you look back and it was like, that was a straight line.
yeah, yeah. It was. And look, you're spot on about perspective, and what I'm sharing about, having a broader sense of purpose and how to manage loss and all those things. It still doesn't make it easy because
No.
if you're passionate about something, you're probably going to put a lot of time and effort into it. You're probably going to put dedicated laser focus into it. And you're putting that focus in because you're trying to achieve something. So not achieving that is always going to kind of sting a little bit. And you're
Mm.
constantly having to kind of check yourself and go, okay, hey, let me get my head out of this a little bit. Right. It's a cyclic thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I work with this woman, Caroline Miller. She's a goal setting expert and published a handful of books. And one of the recent learnings from her was there's a difference between performance goals and learning goals.
Yeah.
And if you're trying something for the first time, or you're trying it in a different way for the first time or the second time or the third time, and you're continuing to learn, you need to give yourself a little bit of slack, right?
Yeah.
You're not going to learn something new and be the best at it right away. You've got to sort of go through your own process. And then when it comes to performance, have a very specific performance goal, right? And so um, her teachings have really sort of given me a little bit more leeway of being kinder to myself.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah. So I'd love to change the topic on you a little bit and explore your entrepreneurial journey, right? You went from D1 track and field to pharma, and now you're the founder, CEO of Varlo. I'd love to fill in the gaps there.
Yes. D1 track and field, learned a lot there, perseverance, endurance, training, being coachable. Um, I got into pharmaceuticals right out of college, which was a very interesting thing. And there's a story to this, right? Small, minor story, and I won't spend a lot of time here. So I got hired before I graduated college, which back in the day, I don't know how it is now, but that doesn't happen. Like they only would extend job offers if you had your 4-year degree out of a university. And my last year of school, I remember going to all these job fairs to interview, and they'd, oh, great, yeah, because you've graduated yet, so you're kind of just wasting time. And I was like, man, I don't want to go home and live with mom. And nothing's wrong with going home and live with mom and dad. I just didn't want to do that. So like right around, I don't know, it had to have been like midway through the year. I sat down, and this is going after all these interviews and things. I sat down and I pulled out a phone book. And this, again, this is phone book, right? So we had phone books. And I pulled out a phone book and I looked up every single doctor, whether it was like a cardiologist, nephrologist, ENT, family practice internist, that was in the mid-Michigan area. And I wrote down addresses, names, addresses, names, addresses, names, addresses, names. And I was like, man, I'm going to go there because I know that pharmaceutical reps go to these places. And I would go there and I typed up a cover letter, and it said, "Dear pharmaceutical rep, blah, 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 blah. This is my name and this is who I am, blah, 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 blah. I'd love to work with you one day, blah, 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 whatever." And I had my resume, and I put them in a bunch of like envelopes, and I would go to I probably had like 60 to 70 envelopes with my resume and cover letter. And I would go to different doctors' offices and I'd say, "Hey, do pharmaceutical reps come here?" And they'd be like, "Yeah, they do." Or they'd say, "No, they don't." And if based on that, I would like drop them off, say, "Can you hand these out to pharma reps?" And they're like, "Yeah, sure." Like the next week I had like 4 interviews, one with Merck, one with Pfizer, one with GlaxoSmithKline, and one with Novartis. That's how I got into pharmaceuticals, and I got hired on a contingency before graduating college, right? Now, so there's that. Eventually got into med device, loved it, did that for, I don't know, 10, 12 years or so. And I started working with a couple of startups, which changed everything for me. Scariest thing, best thing in the world. Because the first company I worked with was, I worked with a company called ViewRay. I'm just going to go to that. ViewRay was founded and ViewRay was founded by Jim Dempsey. He created the MRI guided linear accelerator. And this machine, basically for patients with cancer who have radiation, this machine allowed live attenuated view via MRI of the soft tissue. So you could lively attenuated see where the cancer cell was, see where healthy tissue was, and you could dose radiation. And you could lower the amount of fractions. Fractions are how many doses you have to go for radiation. You could lower the amount of fractions based upon this because you could target cancer tissue versus healthy tissue, right? And Jim Dempsey invented it. And these are like $10 million systems. So if a hospital system gets one, they have to like tear out a whole wing, they have to drop in the MRI and everything through the roof. It's a big deal. And so, so I worked with that company towards like the latter part of my time. And the company was relatively small. So it was like, I think we had like maybe 200 reps, I think. And maybe there was like 1,000 people, like as far as staff for the whole company, I think. And when we would go to like sales meetings and things, I would hang out with Jim Dempsey, like, cause it was, small, like you like, "Hey, what's up, Jim?" And, we'd go have a couple of like cocktails and we'd be like, "Hey dude," like, yeah. And that's how we talked. And what was really cool was that I got to hang out with the founder CEO who created the MRI guided layer accelerator. Right. And we got to talk like we were just friends, and we'd exchange numbers. I still have his number. I just send him a text right now. And, I remember asking him all these questions about building a company and why he built a company and why he did this, and what it was like when he was as a physicist, and what his colleagues thought when he said he was going to create this company, and how he got the funding and all these things. And I wasn't thinking about going to start my own company. I was just listening to him. But what I was absorbing was that, man, a lot of people have really cool, great ideas, but few people actually say to themselves, "I'm going to do something about it." Right.
Mm-hmm.
Very few people say, "I'm going to do something about this cool idea I have." Everyone has ideas, trust me. And simultaneously, what I was doing was I had a couple of rental properties that I had in the city of Philadelphia. And so I had this like entrepreneurial thing happening, right? Like this, like, oh, I'm a landlord. I got this property, I have this property. And, I love business. I love, marketing. I love value proposition with customers. And I love thinking outside the box. Remember, if no one's going to hire me. I want to go to where the source is and I can drop off my cards and then they're going to pass them out. So I love that creative out of the box way of thinking. And then I was also in endurance multisport, and someone said to me one time, they're like, man, I wish there was new brands in the space that really spoke to all of the people in triathlon. And I said, huh, that's interesting. And then I started digging. I said, man, who's in triathlon? And I started going, well, what are the profile of the people in triathlon? And like, what do they like and what don't they like? And I started doing all these studies and getting all this data. And I started, assessing the brands that were in this sport, and then actually looking at participations and what their needs were in the sport. And I said to myself, I didn't say, hey, I want to start a company. I didn't say that because that was too big and bold. I said, if I wanted to make products, what would those products be? And I said, if I wanted to speak to these people in the sport, what would I say? And what would it look like? And what would it feel like? And then I slowly started answering those questions. And then before I knew it, I was like, oh my gosh, do I have a company? Like, what is this? I think it's a company, right? And I think I have products, and I think I have a manufacturer, and I think I'm shipping products, right? And then all of a sudden it became what it became. So it wasn't out of like saying, I want to build this and, I want to have staff and I want to have vehicles and all this. That wasn't the case. It was, I have questions that need answers. Let me try to answer those questions. And it slowly started snowballing.
I love that curiosity and I constantly come up against things and it's, there's gotta be a better way for this, or what's the magic thing I need on my bike to make my ride better, or
Yeah.
and you're constantly asking those questions. But how did it go from you've got this information, those data from these participants and people around the industry to actually having a physical product in your hands?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Oh, well, so I had like this information and I'm starting to go, oh man, like, I want to, and at first it was like, well, I want to make a chamois pad I want to make a specialized chamois pad that can do this and do all these things. But I said, I don't know anything about stitching. I don't know anything about like fabrics, GSM. I don't know anything about fabric composition. I don't know anything. So I sat down. I didn't use a phone book this time. I used the internet, and I looked up every single fashion design school within the Philadelphia area. I have a thing about looking up random people and seeing where they are. And so I looked up every university in Philadelphia, and I started emailing people blindly. Mind you, at this time, I have like a job. I have a career. I think I was the marketing manager for one of the companies, and so, but I'm emailing these random academia people in fashion design schools. And Jacqueline Kilmartin, I'll never forget this, from Drexel University. She was one of the people that emailed me back and said, hey, you can come on in. And I walked into this fashion design school at Drexel as how old was I at the time? I don't know, like late 30s or whatever, mid 30s. And she's like, what do you want to know? And I was like, I just want to know how apparel works and how do you make products. And I don't know what I want to know yet, but I just want to know and learn. And so she walked me through the school. I got to sit and watch a couple of lectures. I got to submerge myself with like how stitching was made, fabrics. And what that did is it just fueled this, like, it fueled the passion of, okay, I really want to do this. Like, I really want to study this now. Now I want to start making stuff. Now I want to start innovating stuff. I want to start controlling and assessing how we make products better, because I remember I started looking at different triathlon suits, and I would touch and feel them. And then I would touch the stitching to assess like what the thread was made out of. Was the thread made out of polyester? Was it made out of nylon? Was it made out of a synthetic? What kind of stitching was it? Was it standard stitching? Was it flat lock stitching? I started seeing like, well, how thick was the fabric, what the GSM was, and then what was there body mapping? Like, was there actual body mapping of the product? So that way, because the body's different, like your chest, the skin on your chest is not like the skin on the side flank of your rib. The skin on your knees is not like the skin on your back, right?
Mhm.
Different. It has different exposure to heat. It dissipates moisture. It receives heat differently, right? So then I started going, well, I wonder if I can make products that are mapped out for the body and the anatomy, so that way the body can respond to it the right way, right? With different types of fabrics. And um and then I said to myself, well, I need someone to make this stuff. So I started like, I need someone to make this stuff. And so I was like, man, let me figure out who I can find as manufacturers. And I started reaching out to random manufacturers all over the place, looking people up, calling. I looked at people all over the place, like U.S., China, Russia, Indonesia, Italy, everywhere. And and before I knew, and that was during COVID. And what was really interesting during that time of COVID is that a lot of manufacturers were getting a decrease in orders, or a decrease. So a lot of brands were pulling orders away from manufacturers. Here I was, I still call myself the basement kid. I'm a 42-year-old man. I still call myself the basement kid. But here's this kid that's like, well, I want to make stuff. I actually want to produce stuff, right? And they're like, are you sure? I was like, yeah, positive, I'm sure. And got my first samples, and then got to work, started cutting stuff up, stitching, sewing, touching, feeling, and just going, how do I make it better? And that's it.
Here we are.
Here we are. A lot of
Wow.
iterations, a lot of sleepless nights, Holy moly. But here we are. Ultimately, here we are.
Yeah. So to educate our audience on where Varlo is now, like what's your apparel line,
Yeah.
target audience? Give us a little
Yeah.
sense of if an audience member doesn't know your product by now, why should they know it? How do we go find it?
Yeah, absolutely. So Varlo is a company that designs multi-sport, that's swim, bike, run products for all athletes to conquer the goals of tomorrow. Our belief is that and Varlo is a word that's derived from valor. It means to have courage in the eyes of adversity, continue to pursue what may not be possible. And our products are in triathlon, so we make triathlon suits. And this is a little spoiler alert, because we're launching. This is the first time that we're going to do this. Next week we're launching a collection line, and it's a very unique collection line that's for triathlon. But our focus in triathlon is looking at how do we make optimized products for people in different aspects of their journey in the sport. So if you're doing a triathlon, you're not going to go buy a tri-suit. You're going to buy a tri-suit that's based on where you are in your journey in the sport. So you might have individuals that are doing sprints, Olympics, or newcomers or early adopters. And then you're going to have people that are enthusiasts. They've been doing a sport for a little bit of time. They are more progressed. And then you're going to have like your performance built athletes who are looking for marginal gains, etc. This is the first time that we're releasing products that are tailored to each segment of athletes based on their journey in the sport. So we're really excited for that launch, which is next week actually. And then, but we also make athleisure products. We also make a line of cycling products. Our cycling products can be found at rei.com and REI in-store. We're currently at like 28 stores nationwide. We're looking to expand hopefully to 50 by the end of 2026. So lots of fun with that. And the big news that I'm really excited to share is that we're expanding our product line to everyday wear. So if you are someone who has a very, very active lifestyle, you do more than just swim, bike, or run. So we've recently released our Terra line of products, our everyday Terra tee made out of 90% bamboo fabric, innovative repositioned elastane, so that way it's breathable, it's antimicrobial, extremely, extremely soft. But we're going to be expanding on that whole line with athletic polos, button-up shirts, also women's sport dresses. That will all be launched later on this year as well. So lots of fun.
Yeah, keeping yourself a little bit busy.
Yeah. Why not? Why not?
So I have to also ask this question. Thinking over your entrepreneurial journey, right, since COVID and getting this product off the ground, like what's been the unexpected benefit of being an entrepreneur?
unexpected benefit of being an entrepreneur.
Or ask it a different way, like, what is the thing? Is there one thing that has occurred that you didn't expect to have, like, with respect to the entrepreneurial journey? Like, I would have never thought XYZ would have happened, or
Yeah,
ABC.
yeah. Varlo, from where it started in my basement, in like the unfinished part of my basement, heat stamping shirts, to where it is currently right now with products in stores and, you know, being the apparel sponsor for international race groups and teams and things like that. Like before this call, I was in a call with Super Tri, and we're like the apparel provider for Super Tri. We also are the apparel provider for Cal Tri, which is another one of the nation's largest race groups. It's definitely a big contrast, a massive jump, right? I would definitely say the one thing that I've learned that is a positive, that I would say it's not a tangible thing. It's so not tangible. It's not like, oh, becoming an entrepreneur, I now have, we have like a warehouse, we have an office, we have staff, we have like company vehicles, things like that. But I think the one truly, and this goes back to purpose, the one truly heartfelt, emotional thing that I can say is I'm going, whoa, like I did it. Like, this is awesome. And it has nothing to do with, of course it's building a company. It's great. But the one thing that I would say, oh my goodness, like, look at what happened, is in the beginning portion of my start to Varlo, I remember saying to myself, I'm going to have a daughter. And my daughter was born, and there she was. And I said to myself, and this is going back to purpose, looking at my story and how I became who I am. And I remember saying to myself, I need to be able to show her and show my children that achieving anything is possible. Like, it truly is. It truly is. And my daughter has seen Varlo since the basement days, where I would make hang tags out of cut twine from Amazon, and I would bag up things in the basement, and I would put her in the back seat, and we'd drive to UPS, and I would take them in and drop them off at UPS or USPS, right? And she's seen things to where they are now, where when we moved into our new headquarters, she was vacuuming, and she was asking Miss D, who's our operations manager. She's like, oh, Miss D, can you, when the orders come in, is it possible, can I have like a Team Varlo tri-suit as well, right? Like, I'm a size small, right? And so, and my daughter, she's even like, both my kids at this point, like, they've seen athletes, our pro athletes on TV, and they're like, oh, that person's in a Varlo kit. My daughter at school, one of her art teacher is a Team Varlo athlete. She's like, someone, on her first day of school, she's like, oh, someone stopped me in the hallway and said, I know your dad. And she's like, oh, who's that? She's like, well, I'm on Team Varlo. Like, I do triathlon. I'm part of Team Varlo. She's like, oh, really? That's cool. And so it's literally, and now my daughter's like, she goes, and she's 6. She's like, Dad, when I'm older, I'm going to start a business too. And I'm going to make sure that, I'm going to change people's lives. And she's 6. She's saying, I'm going to change people's lives. It's seeing the people that are on our team that are saying that their world changed because of our brand, our products, our story, our mission. It's seeing when we first had our team community, Team Varlo, I said, I don't want to do this. I was like, I do not want to do this if the goal is to make a bunch of kits that look alike, so we sell them to a bunch of people and we call them a team. I was like, I want nothing to do with that. It truly has to be about changing lives and changing the culture of what community is in the sport of triathlon. So one of the foundational things that I put into place immediately when we formed our brand community was that, and we say this on every single call, we recite it, like the 3 principles of our brand community. But it was, hey, if someone's wearing a team kit and someone else is wearing a team kit and they're perfect strangers, they cannot walk by each other without acknowledgement. That will never, ever happen. And it doesn't happen. Everyone says, so the brand itself has a namesake that is synonymous with community. Meaning, if I see you in Varlo, a Varlo hat, and you're wearing Varlo shorts, someone will say, "Oh, dude, Varlo, what's up?" And they have no idea who they are, right?
That's
And
awesome.
that to me is amazing. And when I'm walking by someone and they're wearing a Varlo shirt and I'm wearing a Varlo hat, they have no idea that I'm the CEO or the founder. And they just go, "What's up, Varlo?" And they point to my hat and they just keep walking. It's like, yes, like that to me is like, it's like, okay, it worked. It's working, right? To me, that's everything.
You're making my skin tingle. It's interesting. I was wearing a Varlo, and I was sharing this before we hit record. I got my first Varlo shirt 2 weeks ago, and I got home from my race, and I was wearing it, I think Saturday at our local pool, and then just hanging out with a buddy. And he turns to me, he's like, "I really like that shirt." And then no idea why. And him and I sit next to each other all the time, and we wear different
Yeah.
apparel, and never has he commented on the style of shirt I was wearing. And so anyway, it just made me think of that. Like there was enough of an impression that my buddy is like, "Yeah, I just like," and it was sort of the design and the color pattern. But anyway,
Yeah. That's
uh,
awesome. That's awesome. That's
yeah,
awesome. I love that, man. And because look, when you first asked like about entrepreneurship, I said, dude, entrepreneurship is hard. It's so hard. I think about the hard stuff before I think of the good stuff. It's like it is so hard. And I would probably I would talk someone out of being an entrepreneur before talking them into it because it's just so hard. Um, but the rewards and everyone's rewards are different. Some people want to go into entrepreneurship because they want to work for themselves or they want to make a lot of money or whatever their personal things are. I don't know. But for me, like when I think of the rewards that I've received based on what the sacrifices have been, it's saying, man, this worked and it is working. I remember when not this headquarters, the last headquarters that we were in, it was the lower level of like this corporate building. And I moved in there by myself at the time out of the basement. And I wrote on a big dry erase board, I was like, we will not sell clothing. And obviously it's like, well, we sell clothing, which is how do you get people to conquer their goals of tomorrow? If they're at point A, how do we get them to point B? How do we sell the story and communicate to them accordingly so they understand that anything is possible? It is the feeling of crossing the finish line, knowing that it was something that you were not supposed to do. And what that jubilatious feeling is, that is what we sell. That actually is what we sell. It's not the shirt that you're wearing, right? It's not supposed to be.
right.
But the emotional feeling of achieving what's possible, that is the magic potion of what the Varlo brand is.
That's fantastic, and I appreciate not being chafed either. As much from
Oh yeah,
the
that part too.
previous.
That part too. Yeah. No, you got to have great products. You got to make sure they're great products. Yeah.
So an audience member wants to get in touch with you. What's the best way for him or her to get in touch with you?
Absolutely. So definitely on Instagram, you can follow, or on TikTok, or on YouTube, or LinkedIn. We are at varlo.apparel. Myself, my Instagram handles at all things movement, and definitely can follow along, subscribe at varlo.com, and look for all the news, the updates, all things that are going to be coming out with the brand in the due time.
Yeah, it looks like it's going to be exciting couple of weeks for you guys.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I love this conversation. I didn't expect us to get so deep into purpose and control what you can control. And then we led into talking about our children and parenting and sort of the legacy that our entrepreneurial journey is able to leave for our kids. And it really brought back to your conversation with your uncle, talking about your grandparents and your great grandparents and the journey that they required and did to get you to the United States to have this opportunity. I mean, this entire conversation is really driven around purpose and controlling what you control. Audience members, if you got some value out of the show, please subscribe. Please share this message with your community. We want to get this message out, and walk into REI this weekend and find yourself a great Varlo product and test it out.
Absolutely. And there's one thing I want to, if it's okay with you, I want to share something with your audience as well. I want to say, first of all, thank you for having me again. But definitely for your audience out there, I definitely want to extend a code for them to use. 20% off at varlo.com. That's on all products. That's Chief EO 25. So Chief EO 25, definitely anyone that's hearing it out there for your audience. Again, thank you for having me out there. A little gift for the people in your community as well.
That's awesome. You're super generous. I have this passion about discounting on growing businesses. Like, I'm taking margin away from you, but I will actually be shopping on that this afternoon. So I personally will take advantage. And the one shirt that I've worn, it feels different, and
Awesome.
it feels and looks different now that I know your story in a much deeper and passionate way. And I can't wait to celebrate it with you.
Awesome, man. Well, thanks for having me, Gregor. Appreciate it.
Thank you for tuning in to the Chief Endurance Officer podcast. To hear more inspiring stories and strategies around the endurance mindset, be sure to subscribe below or visit us at chiefenduranceofficer.com. Until next time, keep pushing those limits.